everybody. My name is Leslie Ann Johnson. Welcome to this morning's press conference. We do apologize for the late start. We had some issues that were beyond our control. Nevertheless, we are here and we're happy to have you with us. So with us today, the Honorable Clarice Modest Kerwin, Minister for Tourism and Civil Aviation, and the Honorable Nicholas Steele, Minister for Health, Social Security and International Business. Now we're talking about the flight that is coming in tomorrow with the Grenadians, of course, the repatriation process. We know people are eager to come home, having gone through all the challenges with COVID-19. And good news, we have no cases right now, and we're happy for that, and we want to keep it that way. But of course, there are procedures and protocols that must be followed, so the honorable ministers will be talking about that. This morning, we're trying to keep this to 1 hour flat because the ministers are very busy and have other things to do. So please bear that in mind, colleagues. We will turn over to the Honorable Nicholas Steele.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody, all of your viewers and listeners, or our viewers and listeners out there. Yes, this morning we want to talk specifically about the imminent flight tomorrow coming from New York with Grenadians who have been stranded out there in our diaspora in the United States for quite some time. We want to spend a little time answering questions, but also let me start by saying that the various procedures that have been put in place are designed to do two things. One, to keep the passengers that are coming in as safe as possible, because they are Grenadians as well, and also all of us here in Grenada, from those who will be meeting them at the airport to the rest of us who live in Grenada. That is why we have made certain requests and, as best as possible, made sure that these requests are maintained. Request number one was that individuals receive a PCR test before the flight, at least not more than 7 days before the flight, and that test had to be negative for COVID-19. The objective there was to make sure as best as possible that individuals were not infected or contagious before boarding that flight. What we learned subsequently is that in the United States, in many of the states, it is, if not extremely difficult, almost impossible to get a PCR test at request or at leisure. That it has to be in most states based on somebody being symptomatic and referred by a doctor or hospital to get that PCR test. So we had some individuals on that flight who did manage to get a PCR test based on the state that they were in also. But there were a significant number that did not. So we asked that those individuals receive an IgM test, or what we refer to as the rapid test. And they would receive that test and the test results before boarding. We are aware that there may be still individuals who would be unable to get either of those based on the difficulty of getting testing as a whole in the United States and some states. So there may be individuals who by the time of boarding would not have received the test results or the opportunity to have one of those tests through no fault of their own. So we have put additional procedures in place on this end for that. During the flight, everyone is expected to wear masks and maintain distances. There are only 88 persons on that flight. So as best as possible, there will be spacing within the aircraft. But we are aware that that is not an ideal circumstance. When individuals land, they will be asked upon landing to maintain the same lineup as how they sat. So when they come in to the terminal building to be tested by us, we will ask them to sit in the same order that they sat in the aircraft. And we've set the seats up at the airport to accommodate that. The rationale being that wherever you sat on the aircraft, you are at risk, if any risk at all, from those or to those who sit directly next to you. And that when you land at Morris Bishop International, we're going to make sure that you keep the same individuals so that there isn't a possibility of additional contact with people on that flight. In that seating order, individuals will be tested, rapid tested. At that point, all the individuals will be rapid tested by our team. Anyone at that point who tests positive on a rapid test will go to secondary testing right there and then at the airport for PCR test. Depending on the results of that PCR test, they will either be isolated if that PCR test is positive, or they will go into the quarantine, mandatory quarantine facility like everyone else if that PCR test is negative. All individuals will do a minimum of 4 days in the government-approved quarantine facility. At the end or during that 4-day period, every individual will be PCR tested again. All 88 individuals will be PCR tested again. Those who had a PCR test before boarding that was negative, and 4 days after arriving in Grenada have another PCR test that is negative, will be allowed to complete the rest of their quarantine at home, because the risk would have been significantly reduced. Individuals who had only a rapid test before boarding, and then at the end of the 4-day or within the 4-day period of mandatory quarantine would have received a negative PCR test, may be asked to stay a couple of days longer just for us to be safe before they are allowed to finish their quarantine at home. The individuals who were unable to get a test before boarding, because we have no reference for them, our ideal in terms of knowing from testing would be from the date that they arrived here in Grenada, and therefore those individuals will be required to stay longer at the government-approved quarantine, quite likely up to the mandatory 10 or 14 days. I'm saying 10 or 14 days because at present, PAHO WHO has said that the quarantine period can now be reduced to 10 days if someone shows no symptoms from the previous 14 days that we have had. And we in Grenada are still using the option of 14 where we see the risk pertinent to that or relevant to that, and exercise that additional caution. So that is the mechanism as a whole. We do have the contact tracing app that is being trialed, so those individuals will also be asked to download that app so that we can test it with them. But they as I've explained, some after 4 days will continue their quarantine at home, self-quarantine, and others, based on their ability to receive testing prior to departure or not get testing prior to departure, will continue to do the quarantine in the mandatory facility. We have 3 facilities. As always, we try to be discreet with the facilities, but we have given the individuals the options. Based on the facilities, the cost of quarantine is to be borne by those individuals as we move forward for either the 4, 10, or 14 days as required by Ministry of Health personnel. I think in summary that wraps up the health procedures that we've put in place with respect to testing and safety mechanisms.
Thank you very much, Minister. I move straight to the Honorable Clarice Modeste Kerwin.
Thank you very much, and it is a pleasure to share this platform with my colleague Minister, who's been indefatigable over this period. I don't know how he does it, but he has led his ministry with excellence. And there are a number of others that, while I will not call names, I would just want to express admiration and appreciation for how they've given their time and the effort and the knowledge to keep Grenada where it is at this time, so that we're highly recognized and praised for what we're doing. And too much has been put into this for us to take where we are lightly. And I just want to assure everyone that we are going to do everything we can to, from at the government level, and I hope I can say this for all of our citizens, to keep our statistics looking good and keep our people healthy. I want to talk a little bit broader on the repatriation issue. I know our focus is on the flight that is coming in tomorrow, Um, but I want to go back just a little bit to say that this again is another manifestation of our leaders, not leaders in plural, but leaders' commitment. That is Prime Minister and Cabinet to repatriate everybody who is stranded out there, to bring them back. That is has been our primary goal, and we have seen it with, we have demonstrated that with what we've done with the cruise ships, the cruise ship workers, seafarers they are called. And I'm looking at my statistics. We have brought in so far 234 crew members. The last one was on Monday, as you well know, a record-breaking 113 crew members all came in safely. And by and large, the 200 plus persons that have come in, they have been very appreciative. They're happy to be home, and all of the others, except for this last call that came in with the 113, they've gone home and they are in good health, as far as my colleague minister has told me. Everybody being negative, they're all yes. We are extremely happy for that. We expect MSC to come in with 36, 37, sometimes the number varies, on the 30th of June. And we're looking forward to that, because the reality is that all of those seafarers have had an extremely difficult time, just going all over the seas, being turned away by a number of countries, and they would have experienced their fears and their little disappointments and so on, and we're happy to do that. And Minister explained this, the issue surrounding the flight that is going to be coming in tomorrow, and it was an effort on everybody's part, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and its staff overseas, in the US, UK, everybody working to bring our citizens back home, the COVID team looking at what it had to do and so on. And it really was a work of commitment and dedication to our people in the Tri-Island state, and I am pleased to have been a part of that. And as time goes on, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it cautiously, carefully. We're going to do it in a manageable way, because even at this time, all of the usual facilities, they are full to capacity. And so we have had to move outwards to give persons who can afford to pay for a room to get a facility, that is more relaxing and so on. And we have done that, and we have some rooms. I want to speak about something here that is a reality that we have to face. With the badge on, Mr. COVID, we have to face it. And I understand that there's apprehension, there's concern, and some people are still waiting and say, wait until it's over. I have listened to the great Mr. Fauci. I have listened to my minister and his team, colleague minister, and waiting until it's over is not realistic. Because what they're saying is next year, 1 year from now, second wave, third wave. This is the reality of COVID. And we can either learn to live with it, learn to follow guidelines and instructions as the Ministry of Health has guided us, and all of the experts regionally and worldwide have done. Or we could just prepare to lie down and die. That is the reality of COVID. So I understand the fear, and this is not said to criticize, but this is said to get people to start thinking, yes, boy, this thing is going to be here for a while, so we have to adjust. We have to ensure that we start wearing masks all the time, and observe the social distancing and everything else, the hand washing. And I am well aware that it is going to take a paradigm shift, a big shift, a big jump for us to get used to these things. And our minister and his ministry, they have assured us that we are now COVID-free. But this is not a license to do what we want. And I travel on the road and I see persons chatting with each other, no mask in their face. Everybody, even somewhere we went a few days ago and somebody came to shake my hand, and it puts you in a sort of awkward position to have to back off and say, no, that is not the time. So I am well aware it's going to take some doing. And I am linking that with the need to train and the fact that we have been training persons for the past couple months. We started with the airport because that's our first port of entry, our first risk area. And then we did, in collaboration with GHTA and GTA, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Health, everybody taking up the mantle and playing their part. And we have been offering training to all levels in the accommodation, be the managers, the cleaners, the security, just about everybody has been trained, maybe with few exceptions. We have gone to the transportation within the tourism sector, so the taxi people have been trained. They have at least had 2 sessions. Food and beverage, how you handle food. Do you do barbecue? Not barbecue. Do you do buffet? Or do you have people served instead? Is it preferable to serve them in their rooms? What about dining? And we've also included outside dining that is not directly related to tourism but related in some way, and we've done dive. And we've looked at all of these areas and they're being reviewed now to see where we need to reinforce, where to do more. Quite a lot has been done at the airport in terms of the scanners, the temperature scanners that are going to pick up persons who have elevated temperatures, the separation, the 6 feet distance. And as Minister would have mentioned, in some instances it is not always possible for the 6. And I think WHO has told us we could go to 3 feet. But our ministry has said, and I did check with them,
With a mask.
Ministry of Health has said, with mask, but also we're holding on to the 6 feet wherever possible. So that is what we're going to do at the airport. We're going to seek to achieve the 6 feet wherever possible. But there may be times when you have to compromise, but you must wear your mask. So these are some of the training that we have been doing. We also worked with the Ministry of Health to come up with a certificate of participation, because we believe that if you cannot spend time to attend a session to train yourself, you don't deserve to be in any job at all where you have to interact with people, because it's always possible that somebody could have it, you could have it, and we all have to presume that and be careful. And if you would not come where somebody who is knowledgeable could train you, where you can ask questions and where you could familiarize yourselves with what you have to do, then I do not think you have a right to be in any facility, whether it's tourism or not. And so the Ministry of Health has come up with 2 certificates. One is a certificate of attendance, showing that you were there. And we're familiar with Zoom now. You can just see who attended, and that can be listed, and we're taking records of that. And the other one is a certificate for the facility itself, which is being inspected as we speak. This has started. They inspect the facilities to see if all of the checks and balances are there. They might even ask somebody to produce their certificate of attendance, which will be on the phone, because we're trying to go paperless, and they will be able to certify or not certify the facility as being COVID ready. So it has been an exemplary demonstration of teamwork on everybody's part. And we are here today to the point where we've brought in a number of Grenadians who have been in facilities where all the protocols have been observed. And thank God we're reaping the benefits of the comfort of mind that we have now that Grenada is COVID-free. So we have also released a date, 1st of July, for the opening of our borders. And that was based on where we are at this time in terms of our statistics. Because the understanding that COVID wouldn't just disappear in the very near future, and we have to just seize the least risky point. We have done that in serious consultation, as I said, with health and so on. But we are well aware that the situation is extremely fluid. It changes. Places that thought they had COVID down pat, they had eradicated, are now finding out that that is not so. Places that were down are up, places that were up are down. And so even if we have set that date, we are still looking at the dynamics. The reality is that our largest source market, our nearest neighbor in terms of serious international visitors and tourism as a source market, we have to be cognizant of what is happening there. And, the decisions will be taken based on the dynamics. So we have set a date because we believe that it is important to work towards a date. The airlines want to know so they can start marketing the schedule for persons. And we would like to see some tourism activity happen. A number of hotels have made a lot of sacrifices, training persons, bringing them in, doing things, purchasing equipment and so. And some are not yet ready. And everybody doesn't have to be ready at the same time. But we're working to get everybody ready, even the small, the guest houses, even the Airbnb with 1 room, 2 rooms, and that sort of thing. We're working towards that. But when we do start, it will only be those who have had their persons trained and have had reinforcement in training, who have everything in place, hand sanitizers, whatever. And I notice locally now they're selling those that are activated by sensor. You stand in front of it, you put your hand, and it drops. And they're looking at a number of ways that they can go paperless or contactless as far as possible. So quite a lot has been done. I think I've said quite a lot here, and so I'll hand over back to you. Thank you. I believe there might not be any questions. I think I've said everything I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I'll still give my colleagues an opportunity to ask any question that they have. Thank you, ministers, colleagues. Questions from you? Remember, we're trying to keep this as tight as possible, so let's do this as quickly as possible. Thank you. Minister Steele, maybe I can start with you. Somebody is asking, how will you balance out the health issue with people eventually returning to nightlife? We know the curfew is 9 o'clock, you're supposed to be inside, but at some point, there will be nightlife again, so they want to know how they'll balance out that, just to ensure that we remain as safe as possible.
Well, the curfew remains, and there isn't any permission given to nightclubs or nightlife, as the person referred to, because we still haven't anywhere been able to find a balance. You have seen, or we know of examples, and I'm sure many of us have seen it as well on international news, in Korea, in the UK, in the US, of opening up nightlife spots, bars and nightclubs, and there being a mass infection occurrence again. So at this point in time, as long as the COVID threat is there and is of significance, it is not possible right now for us to find a mechanism. We are, as human beings, very ingenious. And if we see an example somewhere, a best case example that is practical and is safe, we will consider it. But at this point in time, we haven't seen anywhere in the world an example of being able to open up bars and nightclubs like that, that is safe for individuals.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Modesco, when someone is asking, well, it's basically what would be the protocols for the airport in Carriacou?
Okay, now, sometimes I tend to think of it all as one, but I know Carriacouans like to hear Carriacou spoken about, and I just want to reassure them that everything we do bears Carriacou in mind. We have a protocol at the airport, MBIA, that we're fine-tuning, and that protocol does include Carriacou. There might be a few variations, but the principles would remain the same in terms of what happened, the distancing and everything else. So very soon we'll be sharing that with the staff at Carriacou as well. But we do have a draft that is just being finalized, but Carriacou is borne in mind at all times, yes. As a matter of fact, just to assure too that we're talking with SVG Air has new management, and we've started conversation with them as to terms and conditions to get SVG Air functioning between mainland and Carriacou again. So I just wanted to say that in way by way of assurance or reassurance that we do have them in mind at all times.
Thank you, Minister. All right, so we have some colleagues ready with questions. We have Linda first, then Nancy, then Mikey will come to you. So Linda, good morning.
Good morning to everyone. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to list them all, and the ministers are going to answer when I'm finished. My first question is to the Minister for Health. Can you tell us how much persons have been tested, both rapid and PCR to date? I know we are now COVID-free, but I think some of us would like to have the data for that. For Minister Modeste, can you tell us, you did say that a lot of training is taking place. Does that training include persons who would be going back to the neighborhood? So that we understand people's reaction to know people who would working in hotels and other tourism avenues. People will become very, for want of a better word, be cautious of how they interact with them with all this talk of COVID and how easy it is spread. Does the training include neighborhood or community behavior? And my last question for Minister Modeste is, we look at history, and there was a time the Caribbean was known for its sugar, its sugar cane. There was a time the Caribbean was known for its tobacco and coffee. Even what the Caribbean is known for its tourism. With the collapse or almost ending of each of these industries, new ones develop. Is there any discussion now taking place within the Cabinet of Grenada or within tourism ministers and other ministers within the region as to what will be the next industry the Caribbean will look to tap into? Because from all indications, COVID will be there for a while, and it do not appear that tourism will rebound as fast as is expected. What are the industry or industries that has been considered to rebuild the Caribbean? Thank you for now.
Well, Linda, I would say we've done, based on a couple of days ago, we had crossed the 675, almost 700 mark with respect to PCR tests. The rapid tests were in the thousands. We're on since we started using them significantly by the ministry, we are on our second batch. The first batch was 1,500. The second batch was 3,200. We got it in two shipments, 2,000 and 1,200. So we are over, but I can get those figures for you before the end of today, and hopefully I've sent a request maybe before the end of this program. But basically we're over 700 PCR tests, and we are close to, if not past, 2,000 rapid tests here. We're going to be using 88 rapid tests at minimum tomorrow. So we keep crossing. Remember, any person that comes to the general hospital is rapid tested as well before they're admitted into the general hospital. And we are using rapid tests in most of the health centers in the communities consistently. And PCR tests, every person that has come in, all of the individuals, all the yachts out there that have been in quarantine, before they come out, they're rapid tested as well. Anyone who has come into the country is rapid tested. And anyone still who exhibits any symptoms is rapid tested, PCR tested consistently as well. So on average, I know that the facility does somewhere from a low of 15 to a high of 60, 70 PCR tests per day.
So I guess yeah. So Linda, thank you for that very thought-provoking question about what happens to the public. Let me just start at the hotel. One of the requirements in our protocol is that there should be a staff room or space where staff can change clothes so that what they come from home with should not go into the job, including shoes, because shoes have been seen or demonstrated to transfer the virus just like most other surfaces. And that they change their clothing that they've worked with and it doesn't go home, that the workplace should provide washing facilities. Having said that, I believe that the question you asked may be our Achilles heel, because when we announced the date, everybody got calls. Everybody who is somebody got calls. We're not ready yet. We're not ready yet. Concerns. What if? What if? What if? And while in conversation with people, there are a number who say, well, we have to look at the lowest risk period for us and go for it. There are still a number who have concerns. And I think that is where perhaps we have not done enough to show persons, to the public, what we're doing to safeguard them, because a lot of it will depend on what we do in country. Regardless to what testing is done outside, what we do here, what structures we put in place, the facilities we have, and so on. And you are right, there is concern that someone could always take it home, because in a lot of instances abroad it has happened, and in one or two cases here it has happened. So I'll just say that while we have done a bit, we have not done enough. And we are embarking on that. As a matter of fact, Sherian is right here, and she and her team, they went with us, was it last week? Earlier this week, to look at what is happening at the airport so we can let the public know. And today again, we're due to go, if we finish in time, myself and the minister, to see what's happening, because we think we need to reassure the public that we're doing everything possible to safeguard their health, and I think we need to do more, so thank you for that. The other one is, what are we doing to replace tourism? I would say nothing at the moment. Now, in government, and I notice government has taken a lot of initiatives in terms of agriculture, in terms of the soft loan. The ministry has embarked on a number of things. One thing that comes to my mind is things like the backyard gardening. There's assistance for farmers and so on. Government is still helping and doing things to promote agriculture. I know government, the minister will talk sometime about what they're doing for the Cocoa Association and Nutmeg Association, but I'll just leave it there. But to say that a lot is being done otherwise in this COVID period to adjust and to look at other alternatives. But in the tourism industry, one of the things that has been demonstrated over the years is that over the years, 2008 recession, depression, SARS and MERS and Ebola and everything else, it didn't stop travel. Travel, as a matter of fact, was demonstrated to increase in those periods. I don't know if people did it to ease stress or whatever, but it has continued. And so whatever crisis it is that comes up in whether it's the region or the world, tourism has bounced back. What we're looking at in all of our webinars, all of our discussions is, how can we adjust? Safety is always of paramount importance, and we're looking at that. But other ways, innovative ways, to lure the traveler out. And in speaking to some of the persons who own accommodation in Grenada, Some persons are telling me that bookings they had have not been cancelled. There have been a lot of cancellations in the recent past. But some persons are saying that some persons have maintained their bookings and that others are booking. Several of them are saying that. So I do not think we'll see a slow return, and I think that is justified. But I do not think tourism will die. People have always demonstrated that they want to travel for one reason or the other. So in Grenada, we're looking at our attractions. Looking at a new attraction like a zip line, which we have come very far, and we worked assiduously, even during COVID, the intense months of the lockdown. We did, and we're hoping to see something tangible. We've been working on having a company do some improvements with Annandale, and that is going full speed ahead. We're looking at other attractions. And so what we're going to do is to look at the offerings. We are doing that already. Our product, how we can improve it, how we can compete, because now we're competing with the world. And the last thing I want to say is that the Caribbean has always been a sought-after destination, whether it's for stayover passengers or cruise. And so we're going to ensure that we have our own niche and maximize it and exploit whatever niche we have. But I don't think tourism will just die. Thanks.
If I can just add, I got a confirmation. We've done 853 PCR tests today and 4,500 rapid tests. My numbers in terms of the shipments, I also left out the large initial shipment that we received from Venezuela in the heat of our lockdown, which was, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 of the rapid tests. So that's where we stand today. 853 PCR and 4,500 rapid tests.
If I may just say, I think the minister, his team, and I know there's been another minister who has been aggressively assisting to source materials. This is perhaps the best in the Caribbean. I'm not sure, but population size, even if another country has the same amount of tests, population size, when we look at the number of tests, if we're not the best, we're among the best. Because I know quite a lot who haven't gotten that far. So kudos.
Thank you, Ministers. Nancy Maguire, good morning to you. Nancy, are you there?
Yes, good morning.
Go right ahead. Good morning.
I would like to ask about the inspections. Who are the inspectors, and where do they work? And secondly, in terms of what they're inspecting, I know you mentioned lots of hospitality-related locations, but what about further out into the countryside where tourists will end up in little small places along the roadside, or little shops and the markets where they go and check out the fresh fruits, etc.? So how far do these inspections go into our country? Thank you.
Well, Nancy, the inspection is done by Ministry of Health with respect to the COVID certification that Minister Modest referred to. Ministry of Tourism also gives a certificate saying that everything is approved. The inspection is done right now by the environmental health officers, and we start training next week on a very large group, I'm hoping as much as 100 health wardens that will be going around the island everywhere else as well. Right now, the environmental health officers have been performing yeoman's duty in terms of trying to be everywhere at the same time, inspecting the new sites, and as well, as best as possible, trying to make sure that the the already approved entities, whether it's tourism sites or others, maintain the requirements of the new protocols. We recognize fully that the current complement of individuals in the Ministry of Health does not allow for that to practically happen, and that's why from next week, and it's by the end of the week, the individuals would have completed their training to be health wardens, similar to where we have had traffic wardens assisting the police in maintaining order in certain specific areas. These health wardens will be assisting the environmental health officers in the specific areas of health with respect to COVID and phytosanitary conditions. So COVID island-wide and phytosanitary conditions within the hospitality industry.
Just to say, we also together put a checklist together that will guide these new officers working along with the environmental officers. So it is happening slowly because of the staffing situation, but with the training, we will reach every nook and cranny in this tri-island state.
Thank you. Mikey, good morning.
Good morning. We've heard the statement, seize the least risky point as an indicator to when we open up. So my question is, what are the indicators to determine that July 1st is that least risky point to open up?
Well, the statements that have been made started with, we will not open before the 30th of June. And we specifically said the reason that we were saying that is because we wanted to ensure that we have certain systems in place to allow that to happen. Now we are making a definitive statement, or definitive statement has been said, the 1st of July, the airport will open. There's still discussions with respect to where flights will be coming from. There's still discussions with respect to the demands or requirements from us of safety procedures for those flights, even before they leave their gateway port to come to Grenada. But in terms of what we have put in place here, the mechanisms, the final dry run is being done tomorrow with the 88 coming in. So that's a commercial flight that's coming in with 88, which is going to be around the average number that commercial flights would be coming in with from here on. So we're testing the facilities completely at the airport, as well as the testers, the health personnel that will be doing the rapid tests there, the ability to have individuals go in, a large amount of individuals go into quarantine also tomorrow. As I've said, next week, the training on the health wardens, because we said contact tracing, these health wardens would also assist in contact tracing. So we have quadrupled our contact tracing team, although the contact tracing team was quite successful during the outbreak period that we had, March, April, but we are quadrupling that team as well. The app that is being tested is also part of that mechanism. And remember, I'm saying these things as being tested now in terms of they are here and they are in place. So those are the mechanisms that we put in place, Mikey. But we got to keep observing the world. I mean, in the same way, in March, we were open, but we quickly determined from various hotspots the risk was too great, and therefore we closed to those hotspots. I think you can expect the possibility of that as we proceed. Looking at certain hotspots and deciding, no, the risk is too great from what we're seeing in those hotspots, so we are going to have to bar or put additional safety measures in place for individuals with a travel history or coming from those hotspots.
Any other question from you, Mikey?
Yes, there's another question. Now, are persons charged based on days stayed at the quarantine facility, or is there a standard cost once you're placed there? And what happens if someone tells you that they cannot afford to stay the extra days, either due to cost or length of stay?
Well, persons are to expect the maximum 14 days as a possibility. And the cost is daily. It's the room charge plus food, we give individuals the options, or we have given individuals the options in the past, that if they have their family here can provide food for them, and we try as best as possible to have the units be self-contained where that allows. So individuals can have family bring shopping or food or so to them, and then they can therefore reduce their expenses. The charge that we have put is basically requesting 14 days, and with the cruise ships we have been quite specific because we wanted all of the possible medical as well as room and board, as we say, covered. So we told the cruise ships a fixed price for each individual. Some of them have paid, some of them have not, and those that have not, those individuals that came off the cruise ship said they weren't in a position, so the government had to stand that cost. I mean, if you do the maths based on what Minister Modest has said, 234 people to date, and let's just say conservatively, $200 EC per day between food and accommodation, over 14 days. We're talking of $655 thereabouts $1,000 in food and accommodation. You haven't started to count the cost of testing of each individual. PCR test is about $300 to $400. The rapid test for each individual, the time, overtime as well for the health personnel and security personnel to maintain these sites, etc., transportation and all of those things. So individuals have been paying, and we've been most grateful for those cruise ships and entities that have seen that it is part of their responsibility. And there are Grenadians who have come back and have paid. All of these individuals that have been coming from, that are going to be coming tomorrow, that has been the condition of them coming in, that they are to pay. But as a government, we have a branch in government, social services, and we have always been aware that some individuals may not be able to pay for testing, pay for medical, pay for whatever some of the requirements are. And there is a mechanism in place there to ensure that those individuals truly cannot pay, and that they would not be denied the right to come back home or so. But in this instance, we were quite specific in that the individuals coming on this flight must have the ability to pay. We have had members of the public step forward and say, I will pay for a couple individuals, and we're grateful for that, from private sector that have said, I will help if somebody needs help. And that did happen with the group that came from the UK. Some individuals, some Good Samaritans in Grenada did assist to pay for or to help to pay for some of the individuals that came from the UK. So that is the situation that we are in with respect to the cost of quarantine or so.
Thank you, Minister. Mikey, do you have another, or that's it?
I'll give my colleague.
Right, great. So, Christelina, we move to you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Minister, Minister Steele. As it regards to the return of the cruise ship workers, my understanding is that there are at least 6 that have tested positive for COVID-19. Can you speak to that, please? And I will ask the second question as well to Dr. Clarence Cohen regarding the reopening of the international airport. Initially, the government had said that they were going to focus on reopening for the regional market before going international. Is there any particular reason in mind that decision was taken to reopen internationally and not phase it regionally first and then go international?
You said that there are 6 individuals who tested positive. I know in the past week, individuals have tested positive on the rapid test. Now remember, the rapid test that is done is testing for antibodies, what we refer to as IgG and IgM. So individuals who had COVID previously, within the last year, on the rapid test, will test positive. That is why our procedure is we test you with rapid first, and the rapid will pick up 1 if you've had it and no longer have it, or 2 if you have enough antibodies, other type of antibody that says that you currently have it. Now, after that, we do the PCR. The PCR actually goes all the way down to the DNA. Like we have DNA, but it's the RNA, the actual RNA existence of the virus, and that will is used. So we do not have anyone in the last week that has tested with PCR for us to say that they have COVID-19. We do recognize that, and WHO has said it, so too has CARFA. There are individuals who may still test positive on PCR because the test is that accurate that it picks up the dead DNA or dead RNA of the virus. They no longer have it. They have not had symptoms for 14, 15, 20 days. But there is a possibility that they will test positive PCR, and then when you test again, they'll test negative, and when they test again, they test positive. But that is determined from the fact that we know the individual would have had it, and we know the time has passed. So there are going to be, I think, individuals that individuals who are coming in on the flight tomorrow, or individuals who are coming off cruise ships that would have had COVID-19 weeks or months ago or so, and no longer have it. They will test positive on IgG, on the rapid test, and they could test positive on the PCR. But the medical team makes that determination in conjunction with PAHO and CARFA as to which individuals can be medically cleared and which individuals cannot.
Just to ensure that I have it correct, are you saying that there are 6 people who came in on that particular cruise, the last cruise ship, that have tested positive on the PCR in Grenada?
No. There are my reports are on that last cruise ship. There are 8 individuals who tested positive on the rapid test.
Yeah.
Minister, I think she had a question about the regional.
There was a question on the regional. I am just in consideration of the question that Mikey asked, what is the lowest risk, the question about positives. I just want to say that as long as COVID lasts and people are moving around, we will get some positives here and there. It is not to scare us, but to tell us that we have to monitor ourselves in terms of our behavior and to seek to not contract it from anybody or to spread it. But we will get, we have to start in our minds. We have to start getting used to the idea that we may get the odd case and so. And I'm really pleased that we have a good team who are very, very cautious and are on the ball. And we hope that that continues. In terms of regional, the CARICOM heads had met and they had agreed to collectively determine when it's a good time to open borders. Since then, I presume you may know that some of the islands have gone ahead and opened. We did not think we were ready yet, and therefore we decided to hold back a bit. So the decision finally rests with every individual, but there was that. I also want to say that we have had discussions with 2 different offers from airlines to look at inter-Caribbean travel, which we think is the best thing to do. It's the safest when you look at the numbers of cases in our country per capita, any way you take it, population size wise and so on, which is, I don't want to say excellent, because to say you have a few cases is excellent might sound as though having some cases is good. But the fact is, the record then is an excellent record. So we would like to do that. We're still looking at it because we believe that that is the way to go. And the other thing is right here in Grenada. I want to compliment those few hotels that have started on the staycation issue, because sometimes you live in a country and because there are certain things that you grew up with, we take it for granted. Sometimes it's good to check into a hotel and see how the visitor sees it, and you get a completely different view or different perspective of the beauty, the natural beauty of our country, and so on and so on. So this staycation is going to, it has started. A few hotels have used some initiatives. It will take off even more, hopefully, for the next week or two. We believe that that would give persons, workers and so on, opportunity to get acclimatized, get accustomed to treating people in a great way, but differently to what we're used to. And we're still pursuing the regional. Maybe that is the way we are going to go. We're discussing that, as Minister Steele said. And we believe it's the best way to go. But everybody may not necessarily follow that kind of policy.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, we are nearing the 1 hour mark. Linda, I was told you have a follow-up question. Mike here, you said you would give way to your colleagues. I don't know if you have one final one. After that, we'll wrap things up. Thank you. Linda? No?
Well, I had one follow-up, but now I have two. The minister mentioned about the 6 persons who were tested positive using the rapid. Can he tell us whether or not they have been cleared of being free of COVID, or if their case are asymptomatic, or if they're actually waiting on a second PCR result? So we will know really what is the situation with these 6 persons. For Minister Modeste, she mentioned about regional travel. From my knowledge, quite a bit of Grenadians stuck in Trinidad and other parts. Are we going to see a repatriation flight being organized for persons out of Trinidad in particular? And finally, for Mr. Modeste, Grenada is a shareholder of LIAT to the best of my knowledge. What is the situation regarding LIAT and the resumption of flights?
Okay, Linda, I didn't say 6, it's 8. Whoever asked the question had said 6. It's 8 individuals that tested positive on the rapid test. Now, to date, yes, they were immediately tested for PCR, so that's the more accurate test, and all have been cleared. The reason that we continue the quarantine and observation of all the individuals that came off the cruise ship and all the individuals that are coming on the flight is that they will be tested again and again during that period, to be sure, because we know that there is a possibility that someone could have been infected and 2 or 3 days afterwards, same as when you catch the flu. You only know that you have the flu when you start to feel the symptoms. But you may have been infected 2 or 3 days before you started feeling the symptoms. Similarly, with COVID, we recognize that, and that is why there is the quarantine period. That is why there is testing on entry to Grenada, and those 8 individuals were tested PCR, and they were cleared, but they're still kept in quarantine and will be tested again. So as of today, we can say still, we have 0 cases of COVID-19 in Grenada. We have people in quarantine that we will continue to test. So there is a possibility that 1 or 2 or so, God forbid though, but some of those individuals who are in quarantine may test positive for COVID-19. And we would have to say that we have 1 case in quarantine. But we do not have right now, and the safety procedures, that's why we insist on the quarantine period, and that's why we're making it mandatory quarantine where there is that risk. So that is the explanation there in terms of how 8 people can test on rapid. Now, as I said before, and let me reiterate, the rapid looks for the body's signs that you have had or have COVID-19. The rapid does not actually go and find COVID-19. It looks for the body's signs. The same way that you take a pregnancy test, the pregnancy test doesn't find the fetus. The pregnancy test finds the changes in the body that says you are pregnant. The rapid test works like that. When we find a positive rapid test, that means that somebody's body has made the changes from COVID, either that they had it before, and so now they have antibodies, or that they currently have it. And in order to determine that, that's why we go for the PCR test. that is very specific and says whether or not the virus is present in the body. And so those individuals yesterday, the tests so far have said the virus is not present in the body. They remain in quarantine for us to make sure, and we will test again with the PCR to be absolutely sure that the virus does not exist in their body before we let them come out of quarantine.
All right, Miss Linda. Always with the heavy questions. Repatriation of persons in Trinidad and inter-Caribbean. As I said, we're speaking to two groups of persons who are making proposals on that, and we're looking at it seriously. We're fine-tuning the request, and very soon a decision will be made in that regard. And up till yesterday, I spoke with one of the ministers in government, and I asked, in Trinidad, when will they be open? He said it has not been decided yet. So repatriation depends on the requesting country, and it depends on the country receiving the request to allow borders to open for certain situations. We don't have data on that. Perhaps we should have a repository, some place where persons who are stranded can send this information so that we can have an idea. However, one of the things that we are going to do, as I said, we're going to do it cautiously. We're going to take it batch by batch in a manageable way. We expect that at some point in time we may get 1 or 2 positives. We have to be sure that we have the mechanisms in place, we have enough tests, we have the contact tracing people, and we do not overwhelm our system so that everybody now becomes at risk. So repatriation will depend on all of those things, but I want to assure everybody that our Prime Minister has said to us, it is the right of every Grenadian, and we should do whatever we can to bring persons home. So it will be done in a measured way, but that is the commitment. In terms of LIAT, we had a virtual meeting with the CEO, Reefer Jones, just a few days ago, and she said they're not ready yet. And then I saw the recent release. They are not ready yet. And the chairman of the board of LIAT, they had a change. He is former Prime Minister Owen Arthur of Barbados. And in conversation with our Prime Minister, he told him that he's coming up with a proposal. We have not seen it yet, and so we're waiting to see what they come up with, but they're not ready yet.
All right, so Mikey has a final question, but Minister Steele, I need to sneak in one quickly. Somebody was asking something aside from this about plans for upgrade of the hospital in Carriacou. And then, Mikey, you want to ask yours quickly, and then ministers will wrap things up. Mikey?
I wanted to ask about the monitoring mechanism. Is it mandatory, or persons have the option to disable it?
The app that we're looking at will give us a notification if somebody does disable it. So because it's on your phone, there is the ability to disable, to switch off GPS or so, but it gives us an immediate notification. So that's what we're testing now to see. We're actually testing to see if people can break it before we make it in wide use. And we ourselves have some of us have downloaded it on our own phones and are testing to see, can you work around it or not? Will it notify immediately? If you leave your home, will it notify immediately? And we want to do as many tests as possible before we put it in stream. And just to say, we will be using 2 apps. Both they will have to download from 2 different suppliers. And we are also looking at, and there's a strong possibility that we will implement, which is the GPS wristbands. Which is another stronger mechanism as well, and independent. So we're trying to get redundancy, so to speak, so that we're not reliant on just one mechanism. So I've mentioned 3 mechanisms now, the GPS and 2 apps, and also our own eyes and ears as citizens. We have been throughout this our brothers keepers, and we know as members of the public, responsible members of the public, we are going to look out for those that are supposed to be in home quarantine. And apart from the app saying that, or both apps saying no, they have left and they're not in home quarantine, and the GPS wristbands in the future, our Grenadian public, I am sure, are going to continue to seek our own national interest and say, hey, no, I saw John Brown out of their house as well, and notify the authorities.
But just trying to find out, would it be mandatory?
Yes.
Okay.
On the issue of Carriacou, I was up at Carriacou last weekend, and I did announce on radio, their radio program that I did, that we expect to have the X-ray up and running in Carriacou by the end of July. I can give a further update to say that since returning this week, the X-ray is here in Grenada, the one destined for Carriacou, and arrangements are being made as we speak for it to be brought up to Carriacou, as well as the relevant personnel to be stationed in Carriacou now, so that we can do X-ray facilities at Carriacou. There are additional upgrades for the facility in the smarting, in the same way we did the smarting of Princess Alice to make it more climate resilient from hurricanes, etc. There is work due to start at Princess Royal as well in Carriacou to strengthen the facilities there, to smart, as we say, those facilities on top of the additional X-ray. And I did speak of, and that is also in trail, to have limited but laboratory services, to do limited blood tests, etc. in Carriacou as well. And we expect that to be in the next couple of months as well.
Ministers, thank you. Any final words from you quickly?
I like what I like what Minister Steele said about us, our eyes being the eyes and the ears of this nation. And we have to be vigilant out there, because there will be the odd person who will not comply. And we started off initially with home quarantine, and because it didn't work, we had to go through this expensive means to do it. But this cannot last forever, and the home quarantine would have to come back again. But it has to be monitored, and wherever the device doesn't meet the demands, then the eyes and ears of our people will be much, much required. So vigilance is the word I'm going to leave us with.
But just to close, I want to say, as I said last night, I really want to commend the Minister of Tourism and her team, from the PS down, GTA, etc., that has worked with us on getting the training, getting the certification up. They have facilitated bringing everybody to table, so to speak. All of the hotels, all of the restaurants, all of the transportation sector that has been mentioned, so that this training can happen. And the expectation and the desire, and we have met that, is that the training would happen early, and that we could look at possibly retraining or reinforcement of that, and give time still in case we missed anybody. So I really want to commend the team there, from the most senior to the most junior, for stepping up and assisting in getting this done, as well as our same environmental health team. These are the same officers that are going around inspecting sites that have also participated in the training, supervised the training and the certification, etc. So these gentlemen and men and women have been providing yeoman service. I do expect by the end of next week to give them that backup that they really do need, and so that we can have more eyes and ears on the ground to inspect and re-inspect and make sure people maintain. So I want to commend that team that has brought us to here. We are talking today specifically of the reopening and the tourism sector with respect to COVID-19. So I think those are the individuals that need to be recognized, that have helped us to set a certain standard that allows us to say to the public that all possible measures have been taken to keep everyone as safe as possible.
Honorable Clarice Modeste-Kerwin, Minister for Tourism and Civil Aviation, thank you very much. Honorable Nicholas Steele, Minister for Health, Social Security and International Business, we do thank you. We know you have other things to do. Colleagues, thank you so much as well. Let us report on what we have learned here today. Have a blessed day, everybody.
Government invests an additional $100,000 to ship e-learning devices to Grenada. Details of this story and more in the National Report. Welcome back. With the details to the news for Wednesday, June 17, 2020, I am Sherry-Ann Noel. Education Minister Honorable Emmeline Pear says government has invested $100,000 more in shipping e-learning devices for teachers and students following COVID-19 delays. The shipment of 10,000 devices was scheduled to arrive here 1 week ago following the April 19th announcement, but was delayed because of the border closure. Speaking with Patrick Shaggy Duncan on Wednesday morning, Minister Pear explained that getting the devices here from Hong Kong, even in the face of the pandemic, will cost the government more than $100,000.
The manufacturer gave, I believe it was 4 weeks generally that they can do this. And then we added, based on what the company said, another 2 weeks, understanding the situation we're in with COVID and flights and so on. And those devices are coming from Hong Kong. Now, if you Google and you look at what is happening in Hong Kong, you would understand why it is not surprising that those devices are about a week, going on 2 weeks now, late in terms of the date, the 6-week period that we expected them. However, what the company, and not only that, this is now going to cost over $100,000 more. And why more? Because almost anything, you speak to the people in the health industry and ask them what was the cost of ordering masks and bringing in masks before COVID-19? What was the cost of bringing in gloves before COVID-19? What were they charging you, as in freight and all of that, before COVID-19?
Minister Pear says Grenada is ahead in sourcing and obtaining the e-learning devices for schools. Plans are in the pipeline for the OECS to source similar devices for every country under its umbrella.
Before COVID-19, there was no plan to order 20,000 devices for students and teachers. That was going to be immediate. What we said before COVID-19, we are going to go through the process and we are going to continue upgrading our facilities. So in every school right now, you go and there's high-speed internet. We have been working on this. Millions of dollars through the CASIP project was spent on this because we want to make sure in every class students have that access. We decided that we are going to proceed. The OECS is now discussing how to order, what to order. And we are at the stage where we're discussing receiving. We're putting all the system in place, storage, the people who are going to be hired to configure these devices, how are we going to get it to students.
Moving along, Parliamentary Representative for St. Andrews Southwest, Honorable Yolan Bain Horsford, says work has started on clearing the beaches in her constituency, which are overrun with sargassum. Minister Bain Horsford says brigades are deployed to clean the beaches from Grenville to Battle Hill and Telescope due to the return of the seaweed. For years, countries have been battling and investing thousands into finding solutions to the problem.
We have a lot of sargassum seaweed on the beaches now, the waterfront area, and we have 2 teams in St. Andrews dealing with clearing up of the beaches, etc. One team operates from behind the bus terminus to Telescope, and another team operates from the Long Wall to Battle Hill. And they have been out there trying to get this seaweed in a more controlled area where farmers can come and pick up, the seaweed that is being bundled in a particular area. It's very difficult to keep maintaining the beaches because the water takes the seaweed ever so often. So you pass there in the morning and you see the place is all piled up with seaweed, and in the evening you go back and there's no seaweed there. So people may not understand how the tide flows in especially the bottom area. It's a nuisance because, the stench, and it's not something that could be controlled, easily. It's a challenge, but the teams are out there and they do their work as much as they can.
This is the National Report. More news after the break.
Do you still have EC 1 and 2 cent coins? If you do, then you have until the end of this month, 30th June, to spend them, exchange, or deposit them at your commercial bank. After 30th June, you will not be able to use your 1 and 2 cents as they will no longer be legal tender. Find them, spend them, exchange or deposit them at your commercial bank. Act now and receive value for your 1 and 2 cent coins by 30th June.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Health says its mobile application to monitor quarantined individuals is a success. The app, Medipal, is designed to keep track of individuals during the 14-day quarantine period. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Francis Martin says the new mobile app helps to decrease manpower and provide an avenue for the ministry to keep tabs on the symptoms of those in quarantine.
It also decreases on the manpower needed to keep monitoring them. When we started the COVID response, our public health nurse had to visit the quarantine site every day to monitor them. With use of technology, it's a two-way where we can monitor how they're doing. They get a chance to tell us in real time how they're feeling, if they're having any symptoms, and at the same time, we on our end are able to monitor their locations and monitor how they're doing. So it helps in both directions.
Public Relations Officer Kevin Frederick explained that so far, all the individuals who have been repatriated have cooperated with the ministry by using the app. He says it was designed in such a manner that it will still be appropriate in the event of future outbreaks.
It might be a good thing to keep because the app can be used for future outbreaks, then, so to speak. Let's take, for example, dengue, chikungunya, Zika. They have similar like symptoms to that of COVID. So then we can tweak, and you can use the app for future outbreaks.
And finally in the news, the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands is making preparations to begin 3 projects that will aid in restoration of degraded lands and soil care. That announcement by Minister for Agriculture and Lands, Honorable Yolande Bain Horsford, during an address to the observed World Day to combat desertification on Wednesday.
My ministry is taking the lead through drafted and soon to be approved policies that focus on land and drought. With the soon to commence UNDP, GEF, ecosystem and landscape restoration project that will focus on restoration of degradation projects and is about to submit to GEF with our regional brothers a project named Soil Care that will focus on enhancing our soils to guarantee their fertility for the next generations. I believe that we are a nation that has been endowed by God with rich, fertile soils, and we should utilize it in a wise and sustainable manner to improve livelihoods and maintain a healthy environment.
Minister Bain Horsford says due to the effects of climate change, an estimated 593 million hectares of agricultural lands will be required for food production worldwide in the near future. She says in addition, land use for grazing and grain production to feed animals will account for 80% of agricultural land globally, and 90% of natural ecosystems will transform, primarily to produce food, feed, fiber, and fuel. Minister Bain Horsford also explained the impact of desertification and drought on agricultural lands.
Globally, almost 75% of all lands have been transformed from its natural state, and the pace of conversion is accelerating. This puts lands for agricultural use at a disadvantage as the demands for lands for urban expansion and infrastructure are growing, which contribute to the advent of climate change.
This year's event, which is under the auspices of the United Nations, is guided by the theme Food, Feed, Fiber, with the focus on changing public attitude. And with that story, come to the end of the national report for Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. On behalf of the news and production team, I am Sherry Noel, thanking you for viewing.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.